Hey everybody, how are you? We are back with none other than Ann Canfield. Good evening, Ann, and welcome aboard to the Chill Factor for the first time in a long time.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here.
So, you've been working really hard. This is season 1 of 4 series that we're going to be working on together. Ann is one of the sponsors, so bow down to you. You can't see me over here. Just use your imagination. One is a wonderful, wonderful. Anne is such a wonderful lady. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to let her take the reins because we're going to put this up on the podcast. So if people have any questions afterwards, again, you could text the live call in. You got the number, folks. I'm going to let Anne take over and we're going to go from there. So again, welcome aboard, Anne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
So I'm honored and so happy to be here today as somebody who is a member of Toastmasters and somebody who is a leadership communication coach. I'm really looking to move the needle and help each of us to be better communicators. And today's podcast is all about listening. Are you hearing, listening, or are you actively listening? So today's episode, we are going to talk about what is active listening and how can active listening help us? And third, we're going to talk about how we can be an effective active listener with 2 tips that I use on a daily basis that not only helps you with your active listening, but it also helps you remember conversations and it helps build relationships. We also are going to leave time if you want to call in with a story of how others might have listened to you and how that might have changed you. I know sometimes we think, I wish that conversation had gone better. And today is about the successes and the times that you have been listened to and what did that look like. Use that as your example of maybe those little changes and tweaks you can make in your active listening skills. I'm going to start with a story. I'm going to start with a story that was shared with me at my father-in-law's funeral. When we were at that funeral, a woman had come up to me and my husband and said, "Are you Mr. Canfield's son?" My husband said, "Yes, I am." She said, "I need to tell you how I met your father." She said, my daughter had passed away many years ago. It will be about 18 years now. She goes, I had come a few days after her funeral, and I had sat right on the bench right over there by her grave. And I had been there for about 15 minutes, and I looked over in this direction, and I saw a man who was standing tall and proud one moment, and the next moment, he was on his knees and he was sobbing. You see, your mother had recently died and had passed away. I didn't know who he was. I had never met him, but I felt called to go to him at that moment, knowing he needed somebody to hear him. This woman had gone over to my father-in-law, and for the next 20 minutes, they had sat and she had listened to his story, a love story of how he had met his wife, fallen in love, and they had had 10 children together. She didn't have much to add. She had never met him, but she did listen to every word. That moment on that bench started a friendship that would last till the day that he had passed away and we had met her at that funeral. That story has really stuck with me because it was one moment in time. It was a moment in time where my father-in-law, one of the most giving, loving, kindest people I had ever met. It was the moment where he wasn't a writer and he wasn't the one asking the questions, but he really needed someone to listen to him. He needed to feel cared for, valued, and heard. And that's what she did for him. The reason why I share that story with you is because it really shows the importance of why active listening is so important, especially in a day where we look and hear about artificial intelligence and what that can offer. But I will promise you that human beings and you and I making connection will offer something that no ChatGPT will ever be able to replace. The U.S. Institute of Peace defines active listening as a way of listening and responding to another person that improves mutual understanding. You see, it's being interested in the person, not in the conversation. If you have a friend who comes over and they want to talk about sloths, guess what? That's what the conversation is going to be about. Not that you like sloths, care about sloths, but you're interested in your friend. And that's what you're doing when you're actively listening to them and you're engaged in that conversation, because sloths might not be your favorite subject, but your friend wants to know that they are heard, valued, and cared for in that moment by you. Think of how you feel when you are truly listened to. It is these moments where we are not seeking a response or advice or opinions. Sometimes when we have issues, we don't want to bother anybody with it. We say, you know what, she doesn't want to hear about my problems. I'm not going to call my friend. I'll just figure it out myself. But you see, for your friend, it actually is a compliment when another person calls you up and they share their story with you. They might share a recent success, a challenge, or an experience. It's a huge compliment to you, and they're literally saying, I value and trust you, and I know that you will listen. Active listening shows in our physical appearance, what we say in response, and even how we respond. Our face has all of these micro expressions in it, and little bitty of those tweaks of those expressions say we're engaged and we are all in. In a world of self-service, active listening allows us to connect with each other and build community. You see, language gives life. It gives life to our thoughts. Our brain is always listening. And we may each remember an aha moment because we verbalize those thoughts and we get clarity on an issue. Sometimes that happens gratefully because you approached a friend and they had those active listening skills. You know you're a verbal processor when you are seeking out those active listeners to help gain awareness and clarity. You see, giving someone our complete presence is a presence. It is a present and a gift, one that can be given everywhere we go with every person we meet. So, Kathleen, I have to ask, do you have a moment that you can think of where someone has listened to you?
Absolutely. A friend of mine, when I became a DJ many years ago, my friend Hank, he was very good with me and learning and teaching, not only listening, but he's always guided me through how to be a better listener when it came to customer service and in life. So he is an amazing man, and I give him props for everything that he's ever done for me. You have to learn a lot of patience when it comes to communication, but we do have some people that are actually writing in. I want to redirect if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm not going to disclose of the person's name unless they write to me and tell me that they want to. This person wrote in and they said, ask how to address someone being on maternity leave, but yet being allowed to have access to work computers and schedules when everyone that's out on leave cannot do anything on work on the computer. Do you have any advice for that?
That actually, one of the episodes that we're going to have is going to be about having the confrontational conversation, and that actually would fall more into that episode. I will say the one of my general notes regarding that is to seek first to understand, to open up that conversation with asking questions, understanding where that person is coming from first. And again, going back to active listening, Stephen Covey's habit number 5 is seek first to understand, and asking and opening up that conversation of, can you tell me what the objective is? What are we doing here? What are we looking to achieve? And opening up the conversation that way. But I will tell you, next week, that will be what the episode will be on.
Perfect.
Is those type of conversations.
Perfect. So we want, just remember, there's a 4 series on here. So this is first week, 1 of 4. Okay. We also have another question here. How do again, I'm going to keep the person's name under radar, if you will. How do we get special needs kids to stop believing everything is theirs? Is that something you address as well?
I think I would like more clarification on that.
Okay.
Of what that actually means. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that if you go to my website, findingstrengthtodayLC.com, I actually do offer a complimentary 15-minute call. So I will tell you, for anybody who's listening, anybody that wants that extra time, definitely feel free to go to my website, and I'd be happy to answer any of those questions there as well, especially if it's something I can't answer during this podcast.
Absolutely. So again, folks that are listening in, if you are part of and you've signed up for the newsletter, Anna has been included in many different factors. Her website directly also is on the chillfactor.net, along with what she just gave you for information. You can head over and check out all that information for which you want, like she said, ask away, She's amazing. We're going to be going out and about hopefully soon too. This is something we've talked about maybe a couple different times. We're hoping to hit the road with the Chill Factor and hopefully for some universities, right? Is this where
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to take the Chill Factor on road and go address some really important things. Things have changed over the years, and I wanted to ask you real quick. I know you're a very busy lady, and everybody gets so crazy. At the end of the day, do you do like a self-help for yourself? Because I know you're such an empowering woman. Do you help yourself with different ideas to take care of what needs to be taken care of so you can help others?
I do. It's actually one of the speeches that I've given at Toastmasters. And at the end of the day, I actually have a method that I follow that says, when I review my day, what were my takeaways? What were my giveaways, and what were my getaways?
Very nice.
So what were my takeaways is, what did I learn today? What did I learn that I can bring into going forward into tomorrow? Secondly, what did I give away to somebody else? What influence did I have in a positive way to show love and kindness to others? And then third, what was the getaway? What would I do differently if that situation came up again? So that's kind of what I do at the end of the day in order to keep myself in check. I actually am a positive neuroplasticity trainer with Rick Hansen for Hardwiring Happiness. And it's some of that idea of kind of taking in the good. And at the end of the day, when we kind of recap, what were those moments that are now going to become memories? And what do those look like so we can shape them the way that we want to remember them and kind of cement them in.
Interesting. Very interesting. It's good. It's positive. I like it a lot. As everybody knows, we try to stay as positive as we can. And in the workforce, we have to work with, some people work with a lot of other different people, if you will, not just one person, 2 persons. We're talking like sometimes there's people of 100 in a facility, and everybody has their own opinions, but they have to separate and work together as a team. But that's what you do. We have an extension to the last question addressed. It says this person just takes everything, even if it's not theirs. Mental age is 15 to 16 years of age. Actually, age is 29 years old.
That might be a little bit off topic. And again, I definitely invite you to be able to go to my website to be able to help you with that. The one thing I will say as a behavior analyst, I would take a look at what is the trigger that is before. Look at what the trigger or what's coming before that behavior of them taking something. And then also take a look at what the consequence is. Again, don't want to have a deep discussion now, but those would be a couple of those those beginning questions to look for. But I'm happy to have an additional conversation offline. So I will tell you, there's a phenomenal resource that I use. And there's a book called The Fine Art of Small Talk by Deborah Fine. This book emphasizes the importance of starting conversations, but it also talks about active listening. She gives some wonderful tips. And today I'm going to give you 2 of my active listening tips. And Kathleen is actually going to join me at the end to demonstrate active listening based on these 2 tips.
There you go.
So the common tips are very, very common, and everybody's heard these things. Active listening can be seen. It involves giving eye contact, leaning into the conversation, giving appropriate gestures that match the other person. Our physical posture, our facial expressions, our demeanor say, you have my complete attention. The challenge is that we're looking for our mind to be engaged. How do we keep our mind focused in order to ensure that we actually are actively listening? There's a stat that says we speak about 100 to 200 words a minute, but we can hear 1,000 words a minute. No wonder our minds can wander, and we can listen to a conversation and listen to the voice in our head of our to-do list for tomorrow. So active listening keeps your focus on the person. How do we keep our minds from wandering? Well, there's a trick. As humans, we are natural storytellers. And it's easier to actively listen when we can form a picture in our head. Hence why TV is so popular. All of those details of the stories keep our attention. So when we're having a conversation, what can we do to use this wonderful trick and this technique of storytelling? Well, we can be observant and we can be curious to form a picture in our head of what the person is talking about. For example, being observant in what you see and ask relevant questions and comments to add more details about the emotions and the feelings of what somebody is telling you. Think about the feelings while you're listening to them. Focus on their demeanor. What do you see versus what you're hearing? Maybe even how they are saying it today. How does it relate to a prior conversation that you've had? We can actually validate feelings. And we can say things as, I can see how angry this has made you. Or, Sarah, I'm not sure. Are you more angry or are you afraid? I'm confused. Which one is it that I'm observing right now? Because when we get engaged and put our mind and start asking questions, we actually have a vested interest. And we can start formulating this picture in our mind. Earlier, I mentioned the sloth example. If someone tells me that they saw a sloth earlier today while they were driving down the road and the sloth was in the tree, I might ask, how did you feel when you were so close to the sloth? Now, I've been to Costa Rica, and I know how I felt, and I know my experience, but that doesn't mean anything. The goal is to focus on this situation that they're having and understand it from their viewpoint. I don't know if you know, but I absolutely love sloths. My sloth is literally my mascot for my business because it's important, especially even during actively listening, that we pause and we ask a question. It might be a question in our mind of what we're seeing, what we're going to ask next, or it might be a question that we actually ask our speaker of who we're listening to. You see, we're not here to focus on solving a problem. We're actually here to focus on the person. We're not looking to be interesting. We're here to be interested in the person, to help them gain clarity and awareness on whatever it is that they're talking about. There's a real bonus to being observant as well, because when we can become observant and curious and asking questions, we are much more likely to remember that conversation because, again, we're looking to form a picture in our head. When we have this conversation about a sloth, and I say, well, how big was it? Oh my gosh, it was 2 feet. It was brown. It was moving fast. I saw it right out there on the highway, right next to that old billboard that's falling down. The more detail I can give, the more you're going to start picturing it in your mind, because as humans, we're naturally storytellers and we love listening to stories. So the goal is to create the story. What does it look like? And you're going to remember the conversation, and the bonuses, it's going to build the relationship. So in a month down the road, Kathleen and I might talk about how we saw bears in our backyard. And we'll be able to say, remember, Sarah, she saw a sloth off the highway.
I just read the article before. Did you hear? I don't know if you were tuned in, but there's a lot of bears and moose sighting in Connecticut. So, yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's one of those kind of things is how can we form this picture about what someone is telling us? My previous experience and knowledge, again, is not called on. The whole goal is focused on what they're looking for and caring about the thoughts and how they feel about it. So I know we kind of talked about this idea of being observant and curious in order to be good, active listeners. And Kathleen, if you're up for it, I would love to demonstrate this with you of what active listening would look like.
Absolutely. I am willing to help.
Wonderful. So I'm going to give you a great example. I actually am a member of Toastmasters. And one of the things we just talked about was the importance of not bringing ourselves into the conversation, but really focused on the person speaking. And the scenario is that you've decided to come to our club, Glass City Toastmasters, to learn about public speaking. And you're a first timer. And I, as the meet and greet person, am going to come up and understand kind of what it is that your goals are and what I can do to help you accomplish those goals through Toastmasters by actively listening to your story. So I'm going to pretend that you've just walked in the door and I say, hi, welcome to Toastmasters. What brought you to our meeting today, Kathleen?
Hello, Anne, and thank you for welcoming me in. And yes, the reason why I decided to come to Toastmasters this evening is I was looking for some encouragement in reference to my business as a DJ, publicly speaking.
Oh, fantastic. So tell me, Kathleen, what type of encouragement are you looking for? What are your goals?
So as everybody knows, owning a radio station and getting out there with the public, everybody stares at you. It's a staring game. So redirecting your thoughts and planning and placement when it comes to clientele so you could feel more comfortable as you publicly speak at a wedding. Is this a source in which you are able to touch on?
That is fantastic. So based on what you've told me, it looks like you're looking at when you work the weddings and the public speaking that you're doing at weddings. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. It sounds like you've got a lot of experience. Tell me, what has worked for you so far in this area?
Sure. Communication first and foremost for all of my clients for the 10 years that I've been DJing, but also knowing that someone feels comfortable when you do talk with them all the time, sitting down with them, getting them to know you and you know them. Then you can move forward.
Wow. And I love how you talked about the fact of feeling comfortable. And it sounds like because of your experience, you've made some progress on this goal so far. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
That is correct.
So let me ask you, what would your success look like? If you were successful in the next 3 months, what would that look like for you?
Just bringing in happy memories for people, being able to say that we did this as a team. I've done this, something good for somebody. And the end result at the end of the wedding or at the end of the event, you know that somebody was really happy. It just, in a way, in a positive note, it warms your heart. And there's no money in the world that can bring happiness to somebody. Yeah, sure, money makes you feel good spontaneously. But when you're booking somebody and they are happy at the end result of what you've put out there in public and family and members, yeah, that's priceless.
Now, I can tell just by the sound of your voice, Kathleen, from the beginning of our conversation to now, of the passion that you have to be able to accomplish this goal, which I think is wonderful. And I really look forward to walking with you on your Toastmasters journey to help you be able to be encouraged by working at the weddings and being the DJ. So wonderful. Fantastic.
Thank you, Anne, and I appreciate everything you do and your guidance. So as a team member, and again, you know, you are part of the Chill Factor family. You definitely bring light to everything that you do. Lots of questions tonight, even as we launch this new series. Do you have any final thoughts? And I know we've shared your page. You are up there on the podcast. There's a couple of things on there already on the Chill Factor Radio on iHeart. We're going to definitely continue this series on. But do you have any thoughts of, you know, where we can direct everybody? Again, topics, anything you want to.
Sure. Well, I guess my first question, though, Kathleen, is I have to ask you, how did you feel during that conversation that we just had?
Oh, positive. Absolutely.
Did you?
Knowledge is power, I say.
Good. Fantastic. Fantastic. So I will say that the takeaways right now from this episode is that concept of being observant and curious, noting that the stories that you collect from others are just as important as those stories you share. And also the call to action is for each of the listeners right now to have a conversation using only what the person tells you to prompt the next thing that you ask or share.
Yep.
And to be able to kind of leave on that note. And if you are on social media, you certainly can follow me on Instagram at Finding Strength with Anne. And I would love to hear from you. I'll also have events and upcoming news on that page as well.
Fantastic. So I want to give you a little side note. We do have a couple listeners that are in on the Chill Factor. Yeah, we have a couple of the folks that actually have been very supportive since we launched the Chill Factor, and they are listening in as well. These two, I definitely am going to give the names out. The others will keep a little quiet unless they want their names put out there. But we've got Nick right now that actually is listening in, and he says, you have to enjoy the small things in life, which is exactly, and he said, you are on point, Anne. So wonderful.
Wonderful.
And then Bridget writes in, and she's another mod that I've had for a while. They've got my back, and they're asking questions along here. Thank you for everything, she says, Miss Anne.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Again, our goal right now, you can't see it, but I'm actually known as the cheerleader coach. So I actually have a little pom-pom that I wave in order to be able to cheer people on. Because again, the goal is for us to be able to communicate better and to see that leader within ourselves so that we can become more resilient and we have that self-validation so that we can be givers to other people because each of us have influence.
Absolutely. All the time. And, like you were talking about earlier about the nonverbal communication, the look, if you will, eye to eye contact. It's so important. I think that's a wonderful thing. If my father years ago, he used to say this was his theory, but it's true. And I noticed that with a lot of my clients that I have booked, if somebody can't look you in the eyes, then they're full of beans.
And it's true. I remember when I first started dating my husband, I was a little apprehensive. My husband has epilepsy. I was a little apprehensive at first, and I had a hard time looking him in the eye. And I'll never forget, he's like, I need you to look me right in the eye. Like, it was really important to him all the time to be able to do that, because I wasn't too sure. But again, it's something that I really respected and saw, that honesty and that vulnerability. And I was able to meet him with that
Love
and
it.
meet him where he was, which was wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Great stuff. Good information. And as always, keep up the good work. You're getting a lot of, Nick just sent you 5 high fives for the Chipom-Pom.
fantastic, wonderful. And again, next week, we're actually going to talk about turning a conflict into a conversation. And that will be one next week's episode, to be able to give you tips of the power of the pause and seek first to understand. So that will be what next week's episode will be on.
Perfect. So we will highlight you every week, and keep up the good work, and go easy and do what you do at your best. And this, folks, will be up on Spotify under Ann's name. Go over there and check that out. In probably a couple hours or a day or two, it'll be back up. It'll be on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, like 13 different platforms, and that's where it's going to go up. So we're going to have each one of the series is going to go up there for every week.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kathleen, and anybody else working behind the scenes for us to spread
Yeah,
that
Mikey.
kindness
Mikey's
out
in
there.
there. He's in there.
Mikey.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
job. Fantastic. So I'm waving my pom-pom to everybody out there.
Well, thank
We're
you,
just a little
Ann.
bit more active listening today, and I will catch you soon. I'll look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Yes, and don't forget, you can always call in, folks, too. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ann, and we will chat soon. You have a good rest of your night, and I'm going to go back to the music now. Hey, Ann, do you have a favorite band or kind of any music that you like?
Oh my goodness gracious!
I caught you on the spot.
I know. I will tell you that I actually, my husband and I can't remember the artist, that song that says, I love you more today than yesterday, but not as much as tomorrow.
Oh, I will Google that.
That one, and anything with Frank Sinatra.
Oh, okay.
Anything of those kind of oldies, like that is
Okay.
totally our kind of music.
Frank Sinatra
So,
is
I'm an
hanging
old
up in
soul.
my wall. Haven't you seen that when you've come here?
See, there you go. We're kindred spirits, my dear.
Absolutely. All righty.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so
I'll go
much.
back to the music. You have a great evening, and thank you again. Folks, go check out Ann's stuff. She's got you covered. If you have any questions, she'll definitely take care of you. We'll talk soon, Ann. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.